I'll look at data and knowledge management. I'll look at operational excellence in terms of investing in technology and people. I'll look at the organizational model for organizing our sanitation systems and application of the policies and practices. And I'll also look at leadership and culture. Now, let me provide a brief overview of some of the institutional frameworks that we have. We have very extensive policy and institutional and legal frameworks to address our waste management challenges. Let me mention a few. We have the Local Government Act 462. We have the Environmental Sanitation Policy of 1999, which was revised in 2000 and 2010. We have the National Environmental Sanitation Strategy and Action Plan of 2010, and the Strategic Environmental Sanitation Investment Plan of 2012. The government has also announced a series of initiatives to address our poor state of sanitation. These include allocating 200 million Ghana cedis to resolve the legacy debts, working with the private sector to address waste management, and very recently the Gamma project, which I'm sure the mayor will also talk about. The African Ministers' Council on Water was also organized a conference in Durban in 2008. It was called the Itiqueni Declaration, and Ghana was a signatory to that declaration. So we don't have lack of institutional frameworks for managing sanitation. Now let's look at values and behaviors. Every society has to be built on shared values that define what is considered as fundamental truths and principles that a whole dear will never compromise on, and which shapes behaviors, and that serves as the basis to hold each other accountable. In Ghana, the lyrics of our national anthem can be considered as one of the major sources of values that as Ghanaians we cherish. There are key values like boldness, true humility, honesty, etc. The chorus of the famous Yarana Assassini, which is more or less an alternative national anthem, also states that whether or not this nation develops, clearly depends on the character of the citizens of the nation. For me, this represents the value of stewardship, which must drive our mindset and behaviors. This is because the war against filth and waste will not yield the needed results if citizens also don't take responsibility and demonstrate the right character and boldness to ensure we live in a clean environment. Sanitation management requires joint accountability and responsibility from both citizens as right holders and government as duty bearers. Sanitation, just like security, begins with us individually, in the same way that we ought to be alert with our personal security. As a nation, we need to embed positive social norms, values, and beliefs that reinforce healthy waste and sanitation practices. A good starting point will be to ensure that the values that reinforce cleanliness become integrated into our educational curriculum, and also our pastors should also preach about it, which is also very important. Now let's look at data and knowledge management. In 2012, the World Bank report estimated that Ghana loses $290 million annually due to poor sanitation. And this also affects other sectors of the economy, such as tourism. Compare this to the fact that many people visit Sierra Leone because of the beautiful white beaches in River number 1 and number 2. And the former Ghana High Commissioner in Sierra Leone is here, and he will confirm that. The service sector accounts for 49.5% of our GDP in 2013. So we can package cleanliness, and that can be a source of revenue for this country. Government has to invest in data management to provide accurate information to drive decision making. So the question should be posed. For example, how many sewage systems do we have and how many are functioning? How many landfills do we have and what are their state currently? Can they meet the increasing population growth in the big cities? How much waste is generated in Accra? What are the status of the various waste disposal agreements? And have we had value for money? Now let's look at operational excellence, which more or less talks about investing in technology and people. Now, waste management requires treatment plants and landfill sites. Without these, there's no point collecting the waste in the first place. The technology and equipment to manage waste in a clean and efficient manner are highly capital intensive, as they must run 24 hours every day. According to a report by IMANI in 2014, sanitation investment in Ghana was less than 0.1% of GDP. In 2015, it went up to 0.2% of GDP, which is still less than the 0.5% that Ghana signed up to as part of the IMANI Declaration. The amendment of the Customs and Excise Act in 2013, passed by Parliament, determined an excise duty of 10% of the ex-factory price on imported plastics and products. The law indicates that no less than 50% of the revenue accruing under this tariff should be paid into a fund designated as the Plastic Waste Recycling Fund. By IMANI's record, an estimated amount of 265 million Ghana cedis has been realized since the introduction of the excise duty, and has the potential of providing the country 950,000 waste bins. A key solution towards resolving the sanitation problem is to ask government to explain how the Plastic Waste Recycling Fund has been used 4 years since the passing of this law, and to what extent it has been applied towards tackling the challenges with waste management in Ghana. There are a few significant private sector players who are contributing towards this fight, and therefore investing in the right technology with the right people with the right skills will also be very crucial in the process. I am aware that Zoom Lion and the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology have established the African Institute of Waste Management to build capacities and expertise in waste management. This must be seen as a national treasure to leverage so that it contributes towards building core capabilities in the sector. Because for us in IMANI, we believe that private resource is also national resource. So we need to invest in that. Government also has to build partnership with integrity-driven actors from the private sector. Integrity-driven actors from the private sector to win the war against waste and filth. Operational excellence also requires investing in research to support new technologies and approaches in waste management. There are many promising low-cost, high-impact innovations, such as alternating twin ventilated latrines, the Fossa Alterna, EcoSan, the Abolu and Poo flush toilets. For example, for rural and urban households without individual water connections, there are new technologies on waterless excreta disposal solutions, which also promotes the use of hand washing. So government must strengthen the capacity of the Ghana Standards Board to play an active role in the standardization of sanitation technologies in line with environmental quality standards. Now let's look at the organizational model. For me, I think as an HR person, a very weak organizational model also accounts for some of the paralysis in decision-making with respect to waste management in Ghana. There are 4 key factors that I want to mention. Firstly, the way the delivery of technical and support service expertise has been organized facilitates bureaucracy and does not help to clarify decision space and decision mandate of the key actors and structures. So there must be clarity on decision space and decision mandate of all the key actors involved in sanitation management. Secondly, there must be more clarity on separation of roles and checks and balances between the various actors: Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, Community Water and Sanitation Agency, the Metropolitan, Municipal and District Assemblies, Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation, Works and Housing, etc., to coordinate resources, efforts, and expertise. We think in IMANI that the responsibility and accountability for sanitation must be vested at a decentralized level. And personally, I agree with the minister when he says that the job of the minister is not to clean waste. It is the responsibility of the decentralized agencies to do that, and not the minister. Thirdly, there is also need to focus on building the right strategic partnerships with NGOs, the private sector, faith-based organizations, and community-based leadership structures in the war against waste and filth. Now let me talk about leadership and culture of accountability. I think to win the war against waste and filth, Ghana needs strong, values-driven leaders who promote a culture of accountability across all the 3 levels of governance, whether at the national level, at the regional level, at the local government level, to ensure policy alignment in budgeting, planning, and measurement of results. We need leaders who consistently apply corrective action when performance expectations are not met. Let's enforce the laws. We also need leaders at assemblies who must have business acumen. I think now we need to have people at the assemblies who are entrepreneurial, and who should stop relying on government funds alone. We need people who think out of the box. Because there's now donor fatigue in the sanitation sector. Donors have become tired because there's a lot of corruption in that sector. So if you are sitting there waiting for donor support, you will not solve the problem. Let's have people with business acumen, who are entrepreneurial, who are innovative, who are ready to take risks, and support them to run our assemblies. Let me conclude with the famous Rwanda model, which is touted as a best practice for environmental cleanliness in Africa. In 2008, the government of Rwanda banned non-biodegradable plastic. In Rwanda, littering is not an option. It's not an option. Plastic bags are illegal and confiscated at the point of entry. In Rwanda, the laws are enforced. The sanitation policy of Rwanda 2016 also embeds key principles such as cost recovery, private sector participation, gender and child protection, as well as behavior change. So it's a holistic approach. Sustainable cleanliness is a combination of holistic discipline in mindset, systems, and leadership. A clean Ghana should be a priority for all of us. The war against filth and waste can be sustainably won if we adopt a system-wide organizational design approach, which focuses on values and behaviors, data and knowledge management, operational excellence, the organizational model, and leadership and culture. We need discipline from government, we need discipline from the private sector, we need discipline from citizens in order to win the war against filth and waste. Let's create a Ghana beyond Bola. Thank you.